Welcome back, students, and here we are ready to go ahead and weave. This is a practice loom that I did a long time ago, and so I just continue to practice on it. You can see that I was practicing textures and I was practicing how to do painting on it, and now I'm going to practice how to weave on it, and this will be your final weaving. I love the soft fiber art with the clay piece. It just really ends up being interesting because it's so opposite from each other. And so what you want to do is go ahead and grab 1, 2, and a little bit more, so that's arm lengths of yarn. And I'm looking for your yarn to match with the colors that are inside of your weaving. So, so there's some, whether it's exactly opposite colors or if it's colors that are exactly the same as your weaving, just so it comes together. Otherwise, it's going to look like an accident. And I feel like what I've chosen is an accident. I had all these kinds of, they're brighter colors, and I chose these colors that are duller, and they don't match any single one of the colors that are on there. That's not even opposite, it's just random. So make sure that they match on purpose, and that we have those thoughts so your piece looks complete in the end. The first thing that you're going to want to do is put your yarn through your needle, and I can easily do that. A good way to do that, because I've sewn lots of times before, a good way to do that if your ends keep on getting frayed and it's hard to get it through is just to give it a nice snip on the end, and then you have fresh yarn to go through there that sticks out and behaves a little bit better. Another thing you can do is take a tiny, tiny, tiny piece of tape that actually fits through that eye of the needle like this, and what you will do is fold it over, and it kind of takes the end there and makes it all like stiff because the yarn is so behaves badly, and then you can just pull it through like this. Make sure you get that tape off then, otherwise the weaving part will be a little bit trickier. I like to have a few inches of the yarn folded over. We're not going to put a knot in this. We're just going to hold this as we go through, and this is going to keep the yarn from pulling out of the eye of the needle. So we're going to have a super, super long tail like this, and this is just going to be held on with a shorter tail. But it's still pretty long. I mean, it's the whole length of this, so that's pretty wide. Now, in order to get started, we have to have a plan. So what we're going to do is flip over the loom, and all of the directions are written on the paper that says weaving instructions, and then there's a visual on the back as well. So step number 1 basically is loom face down. So this is my front face of it. I'm going to face it down on the table. Number the holes going around like a clock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make sure that your holes are all numbered on the back, going all the way up to 17. The yarn needs to be on a needle, and then beginning at hole number 1, and again I'll show you, this picture is on this side. It's on a different example that I did. Going from this side, you're going from the back side, and that's the tricky part. It says begin at hole 1 from the back to the front. You'll end up with a tail about 3 inches, and I'll show you what that looks like. So you're going to go from the back to the front on hole number 1 and pull it through, and you'll end up with a tail that's about 3 inches. So here's my tail, and it's at about 3 inches. Even shorter, doesn't matter. And I have it taped down. Again, in weaving, we don't tie a lot of knots, and we don't need to tie a knot for this one too. Now we're going to go over, it says go to 10. Here's my number 10. From the front, that's this side, this is the back, this is the front. From the front to the back, pull it through tight, and now we're going to go over to 11. And this is what our weaving is going to look like all of the time. Meaning we're going to go from one number, 11, across to the other number, 2. Now it says go over to 11, which we did. Now take 2 and go from the back to the front, from the back to the front. And then we're going to go over to 3. I think I said that wrong. It's actually 2 from the front to the back. I'm sorry I said that wrong. Let's go look at that again. It says back to front on here. I didn't realize that. We're actually going to go from front to back. So 11 to 2, front to back, and then over to 3. I'll make sure that that gets switched. Now we're over to 3, and this is where my yarn is at, and it says go 12 front to back, and that is correct. 12 front to back. Over to 13. And people usually start getting a rhythm fairly soon. Some takes longer, some slower. This is plenty of long yarn, but we're going to need it to weave. And then it says 4 front to back. So we go from 13 to 4, front to back. And then you probably should start guessing now that now we go over. So essentially what we're doing is we're going across, and then we're going over. I can't go to 13, I've already been there, so now I'm going to go to 15. When I look at where I left off last, I'm going over here to the 6. And then I'm going over to the 7. And this is why I purposely did that. This might happen. You might get a tail because maybe your yarn is too long. You just have to, or too short, you have to pull it through like that. I'm going to go 16 over again, across, then over to 17, up through 8, and over and done to 9. And now I have, if you've pulled all of that nice and tight, you have that weaving. And you do want to make sure that this has been pretty snug. Otherwise your weaving will be kind of like weighted down. And this is where I want you to stop. Take a look that make sure all of your yarn comes up through the top. Make sure your back kind of looks like a pattern with a space and a yarn and space and a yarn going all the way around except for our 1. And then watch the next video to understand how to weave through in a circle. Thanks for watching. Bye.